All right, so now we're going to look at how to review your own lift and what reference lines, as we call them, you're looking at through the bench press. So the first one's obviously going to be from the toe to the heel, same as we did in the squats. What's happening here? Is the angle the same on both feet? Is it changing throughout the lift? Are we getting the direction of force that we want from that previous video? Are we keeping that force on the inside of the heel or the outside? Where do we want it, and are we achieving that? Then we're going to look at ankle to knee. Again, we don't really want that to change throughout the lift. If we see when you press off your chest that the knees are moving, that suggests that we don't have enough tension at the heel there. So that's a reference point that we're looking at. Are the knees moving in or out or up and down as we come off the chest in particular? Then we're looking at hip to knee. Same thing. We don't want any change through that position throughout the lift. We want that nice and solid. And we also want it to be symmetrical side to side. So a really easy way to expose any hip issues, especially in extension, is when we get into this position in the bench press and we're seeing a difference in the knee position on both sides. We can see Mads has got quite a lot of hip extension here. So then we're looking at from the hip all the way down to the shoulder. So we're trying to create as much of this arch as possible through the thoracic and not through the lower back. So we still want to have some, but we want most of it to come from the thoracic because that's what's actually going to pull the shoulder blades underneath us and create that stability within the whole torso. We're also obviously going to be considering the brace breath. If we see that expansion at the start of the rep and then we lose that throughout, that's obviously something we want to keep an eye on. Once we unrack the bar, we're working at the shoulder to elbow line. So we spoke earlier about keeping the arms at about a 45 degrees angle to the torso. If one's flaring, they're both flaring or changing throughout the lift. Again, that's a problem. One of the most common ones you'll see is they're 45 degrees and then kick out to 60, 70 degrees as we come off the chest. Elbow to wrist, not a lot's gonna happen there, but from the top, we'll see if those elbows are tucked in too much or they're flaring out too much. Tucked in's a common one when you're trying to keep your lats engaged. And then also we're looking at the wrist position as well. So Mads has got a little bit of an extension in her wrist at the moment. Rather than having the bar sit on the meat of her hand, it was hanging on the wrist. This is a stronger position that she's in now compared to this flex position that we had when we talk about energy loss that she probably makes up with wrist straps, but we can just correct that a little bit here. So then as we go through motion, we're looking at all of those. So if you're watching a video back of your lift, we're going what's happening toe to ankle to knee, knee to hip to shoulder to elbow to wrist, and then wrist to the actual bar. Are we balanced with our fingers as well? So get Mads just to go through a couple. So if I'm watching Mads as a coach, I'm looking in that whole system all the way through, just breaking down each one of those reference lines to make sure they're all doing what we wanted them to do. You can see Mads is really stable as she comes off the chest. We're not seeing too much change in foot position, bracing, everything is really, really solid. And that's what we want to see.